Hello friends, very good evening. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Talent Traders. Myself Bala here. I welcome you all to my channel and this live session. I'm going to discuss about my scanner which I have already created inside CPR. Okay, so here the scanner is already available on my premium Telegram group. So how we can find out the stocks one day before the stock which forming a tomorrow candle. We can easily find out with this scanner, but manually also we can try it. And this video is for my scanner purpose. I'm making it, and here I'm just using the top CPR and bottom CPR. And simply I created the scanner based on the custom indicator, and maybe people who have some ideas how to trade narrow CPR stocks, but I'm not going to tell you how to trade narrow CPR, but I have some concepts. So maybe if it is suitable, then you can utilize for that for your intraday trade also. And this is what the concept and conditions which I have created earlier. The scanner would be available on my premium Telegram group. So this particular scanner will filter out the stock which forming a inside CPR. So CPR, the pivot and top CPR and bottom central pivot. And the next day, tomorrow, would be inside between the previous day. So maybe a trending day we can expect, or even R1 to break out, and we can expect for upside move. And that should be a concept which I am just planning to take a trade opportunity based on that. So people were asking on my premium group, so narrow CPR. So that's why this video. So here I'm just opening the chart, and here we can see the CPR level, CPR, BC, TC, and pivot. And one more thing, so if you're comparing, so these are all the levels for today's level. So in this case, the today's CPR, sometimes this TC should be always be greater than, and pivot and BC would be the bottom central. Sometimes BC would be greater than the pivot as well as TC. This is a reversal. Okay. So here in this case BC would be higher. So that is why many scanners will fail, but we fixed this on a different scanner. But here we are finding out very narrow only. So that is not a very important here. So most of my scanner always TC would be greater than the pivot and BC would be less than the pivot. This is the normal condition. Some conditions where you can see BC, pivot and TC. So exactly today where you can see, but on my another scanners, so that would be avoided. Okay. So but if we are finding a narrow, so compared to the previous day, this is the previous day BC or TC. Okay. Or TC, whatever it may be, here BC or TC, but today is entirely inside between that. So such a kind of stocks only this scanner will filter out, and then you can utilize for your trading strategies after picking out the stocks, whether I'm just looking for an R1 to break out, or someone who taken the pivot below stop loss and we can take an enter earlier. So maybe it's a different concept where we can use it, but my concept is to find out the stocks where exactly we can look at this very narrow in conditions. In this case BC is greater than, but here also BC is greater than the TC. So this will give you fake result while you are creating the scanners. So we need to very careful about that conditions to find out the another kind of CPR scanners. Okay. So here we are finding only a narrow. Okay, so here we find a narrow CPR, and how that stock is telling, and look at that loop in which was resulted in today. That means the stock which forming a narrow CPR for tomorrow. Okay, so let me check the loop in, and I was taken out one of the scanner from that CPR, and it will tell you tomorrow CPR. Yeah, exactly. You can see the blue lines. BC is greater than the TC here, and previously BC and TC, and this today's scenario that exactly it in between the previous day level. Here is the previous day BC or TC, and today is entirely inside between the previous day level. That scanner will filter out those stock which forming a such a pattern. So very narrow and also be inside. Okay, so narrow CPR, we have created different scanners to find out a very tight range. So we can adjust the width of that TC and BC. There we used higher level TC and lower level BC. Okay, so here it will be finding out the stocks where tomorrow we can look at that stocks for a trading opportunity. Here also you can look at this very tight range or very narrow and inside. Okay, so we can easily filter out with the scanner, and this is a backtest result. and maybe recently we have a ABB ACC on 28.6. So let me check ABB and whether how it is works. So inside 28.6, yes, we go for here. You can see 28.6 means next day only we are going to look at this, because it is filtering the stocks one day before. Okay, so if the stock came at a 28, we are looking for a next day, because we are finding the trade that narrow CPR stocks one day ago, or sorry, one day prior to that. So next day it is entirely narrow CPR, that means today. But here we don't find out any kind of such a big moves which is happening, whether R1 or S1, it is trading in between the R1 and S1 level, so it doesn't break the level. Maybe I'm just looking for a R1 to break out. So ACC, M&M, same thing which is happening. And ACC, it is today, it is given you the breakout on R1. Maybe if I'm keeping a pivot as a stop loss today, it was giving you such a good result in ACC. So where it is comparing to the previous day, it is entirely inside between the previous day's level. So this stocks we will be getting by one day prior. And M&M, let me go for M&M. Go check this, and doesn't break the R1 level. It is my concept where I'm just looking for an R1 to break out inside between that previous day, but it doesn't break the level. So even a lot of stocks we got it, but from there we are going to select SRF, and Ultratech is the one more stocks. SRF, what is happening? Is there any breakout on R1? So it is happening on around 2:45 to 3 o'clock. It is not a good time to take a trade in intraday, and entirely inside between that. And Ultratech Cement is the next one. Let me check that. So R1, yeah, here it is giving you the breakout around 11,800, and it went up to maximum 12,020. It's almost 200 point movement inside CPR, and it breaks the R1. So that's my concept. But this scanner will help you to find out stocks which forming a inside. And this is for a 28 SBN Trent Sun Pharma. Let me check SBAN 28 here. So that is giving you in the first candle itself, it given you the breakout on R1, and it was giving you a good move, and some of the stocks like a trend. So one day prior we will finding out the stocks for a breakout. So maybe R1. Here is the R1 by opening itself on R1, so 537, and it went up to maximum 5500, and that's a good move. And these are all the stocks, and this is the scanner which we are going to find out the stock from tomorrow, for tomorrow. So whenever you see in the backtest result, 27 means that's these stocks which we are looking for a 28 next trading session. So Granules and Biocon. So let me go for Granules. I hope you understood the concept. So this time it is a failure. So where we are looking for an R1 breakout and a pivot as a my stop loss, it got to be triggered to somewhere around 503 to 499. So that is also be happened. So but inside, if it is breaks the R1, I'm just looking for a good move upside. But in this case, failure also be happened, but the success ratio may be nearby 70-80% after filtering out the stocks from the list. And Nakuri and Granules already we seen. This would maybe it is not reaching the pivot as a stop loss, but it came down to BC, and then it bounces back. Maybe R1 breakout is somewhere around 6,700, and it is reaching towards R2. So that's a good opportunity, but today it is continuous the momentum. So pivot level stop loss is not triggered, but mostly this scanner which I find out the stocks for tomorrow for an intraday opportunity. So based on CPR and also inside between the previous one. So this is a backtest result, and you can also backtest, and this is whatever the stock was shown on the day, that stock for a next day. So as of now we have only one stock is looping, and let me check if you are changing a Nifty 500, there many stocks would be there. So see, these are all the stocks, but I just looking for Phoenix Mills. Let me check. What is the name? PHOE. Yeah, this would be also narrow CPR. So comparing the next day, it's very tight. So maybe, but it is I'm not normally used to find out the stocks in futures and options categories. So I always used to be a fund of stocks. And the Lupin is the only one, so which we can check for tomorrow. And this is the scanner. It is already updated on this group, and this video link would be added to that particular link. So maybe it's a future purpose. So simple logic where we created the scanner and reduce the time of our searching, and it will helping you to find out for intraday trade opportunities. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching. And if you are a new, kindly subscribe the channel too. Thank you.